Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nappy Changing and Brand Building with me, Laura Crawford, and with Jennie Potts.
Hello.
Jennie is my Director of Operations Director, Chief Bottle Washer, and Mistress of all. She keeps me honest and keeps the business running on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I try.
Yeah, try. Jennie is also my best friend of 25
20 blah, blah, blah.
a very long time. And Jennie joined me at Mama Bamboo within, the first couple of months.
Yes, I think so.
Yep, and has been with me ever since, and I would not be without her, let's put it that way. So we thought that it would be quite nice to do a podcast with the two of us, chatting and answering some of the questions that we get asked fairly regularly at various business meetings and from our clients. So you've sent in some of your questions, and we're going to have a go at answering them for you. So the first one that we get asked all the time is how we got started with Mama Bamboo and why we got started with Mama Bamboo. And I think I've told this story a fair number of times now, but basically when my little ones were tiny, I couldn't find what I wanted in an eco nappy. To be fair, the first time round with Becca, my first child, I knew nothing about the plastic that was in nappies or the chemicals or anything. And I just used what was ever on the shelf. And when she got nappy rash, I didn't think anything of it. I just put nappy cream on and what I moved on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So I've got one child, Sam, he's nearly 14, so he's a little bit older. And there weren't really any other eco brands then. And I also remember I looked at reusables, and there were even fewer brands available then. And I tried to understand it all and get to terms with it. And then again, as we see with lots of grandparents, my mum said, "Oh, goodness me, you do not want to do that. I did it with terry toweling. It's a nightmare. Use disposables."
Yeah, just flip back. And so when my second was born, I'd become aware of the eco problem of nappies and tried reusables. And I think it was about week 3 that my husband found me sitting in the laundry room crying, surrounded by nappies and baby grows covered in sick and 2 screaming children, because my children were still so young. And they were close together. They were close together. And he just said, for God's sakes, use a normal disposable. And I tried the eco nappies that were available, and they didn't really perform very well. There was a lot of leakage. And then whenever I'd switch back to the plastic, I'd notice that you'd get nappy rash.
Yes. So interesting, isn't it?
Oh, it's so frustrating. It just felt like you had to compromise. You could either have no nappy rash and eco-breathable nappy, but it leaked, or you went down the plastic route. It didn't leak, but the baby's covered in nappy rash the whole time. And I can remember I was probably about a year and a half into this when I suddenly went, how hard can it be? I can do this myself.
I mean, that's not a normal thought, though.
No, it's not.
And most of us don't really think, I'll just start my own brand.
Actually, it turned out it was quite hard, wasn't it?
Well, you've done all the hard work by the time that I came.
Yeah, so I spent, maybe a year researching materials and looking into what you could make disposable nappies with. And yes, found bamboo. Mostly because it was already available. So in China and Asia, they've used bamboo for years, for nappies, for wet wipes. So we picked the bamboo, and then I found out about cornstarch, that made the liners all compostable, and you don't need chlorine in nappies because you really don't need it to be bleach white, and that's not nice on skin, and you don't need fragrance, and you don't need lotion. So you can make them like a normal disposable high-performance nappy, just massively more sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it all got started. And then, what was it? It was
2018.
Yeah.
And I was doing a part-time job. And you said to me, I've got this warehouse full of nappies and I've done this thing. Do you think you could just come and help? And I said, yeah, sure. And then I think I started helping you at the baby shows.
Yeah.
And then I started helping processing orders and packing boxes in the warehouse. My goodness, what we were doing. 5 orders a day.
Yeah.
Hand doing all of those in the warehouse, and then sort of moving all the nappies around and making sure we were going to move up to our sort of longer term warehouse. Then I got more involved in the marketing. I'd come with you and help do all different pieces. And I think it was one key meeting in May. Was it May 2019? Yes. And we both sort of sat there and you sort of said, but would you like to be a bigger part of the business? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. 5 years later,
Hi. Hi, you now run the business.
yeah. And it's, well, I don't think either of us knew.
I had no concept of how big it was going to turn out or how complex actually running this kind of business was. Like, it's not our natural background at all. I was working as a management consultant in the banking industry originally. You were doing financial advice.
Yes. And well, I've done a bit of everything. Yeah. So yeah, working in logistics, which helps, but working in financial services. And then obviously, having spent some time in China has also helped.
Yeah. But having you actually know China was an amazing benefit. But I think neither of us knew e-commerce or marketing.
No.
Or any of the finance side of things. We spent that first 2 years, 3 years, constantly learning every day, Googling and trying to work out how you run an entire business.
Yes. It's been a sharp learning curve. As you say, and again, I think in 2019, none of us knew that COVID was coming.
Oh, no.
None of us knew what the knock-on effect of that was going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has been amazing. There are challenging days and it's busy and it can be relentless. But I mean, I have definitely learned so much about myself.
Yeah.
And things that I didn't. And I don't know whether I haven't found myself a little bit more over the last 5 years I've got a life outside of being a mother and a wife.
Yeah.
I've become more the person I used to be. And I feel like I'm almost fulfilling my potential a bit more than I previously.
Yeah, you probably stretched yourself in this role.
So yeah, it's been amazing. It's a bit of a roller coaster.
It can be a roller coaster. And actually that leads on to the second question that we often get asked, which is, how does it feel working with a friend as a business colleague when we work so closely together? And that's an interesting one, because actually I can't now imagine doing this with anyone else. Like, I think the level of trust we have to have in each other, you kind of handle all the operations and the logistics side of things and keep the show on the road. And I have to kind of really focus on product and the certification and marketing side. We don't cross over massively, not every day, but I have, because it's you, I just absolutely trust what you're doing.
And I think if I would say that's the biggest pro for me. And I think because there's so much trust and because there's so much we know so much about each other, sometimes I think that can be a negative, because you will know if I'm having a bad time, you'll be like, oh, Jenny's having a bad day. Why is she having a bad day? When actually other people might not know that. Yeah. But I think therefore, because of that trust, if I turn to you and go, I need help, you will literally down tools and go, okay, what is it? Because something needs
help.
I think trust is one of the biggest things. And I think we are probably able to play devil's advocate with each other much more strongly than we could if we didn't know each other. Because I feel that we never sort of have to walk on eggshells around.
No, we can properly challenge each other. In fact, sometimes in our office, the other girls look like they want to duck and cover.
Yes, and that's probably also
we're having a proper spat.
And that's probably also a problem. But as you say, I couldn't imagine. I don't think you've given me such freedom of reign to do and to learn. And I think, as you say, you allow me to play to my strengths and I allow you to play to your strengths. And again, I think it's probably, you looking at me and going, what's going on? Do you need help? And I probably do the same to you in a way that...
You look stressed.
Yeah. Or I'm like, what can you give me and what have we got going on? So I would say there are probably those moments where... I know, but I don't think you could do it with every friend either.
No, it depends on your friendship, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think because we've been friends for so long. So we went to university together and we've lived together.
Yes.
And we were bridesmaids for one another. Yeah. It's fairly solid.
And I think we're both quite practical people.
Yeah.
And so we can be a little bit confrontational, but then it's done and dusted.
It's done. Things move on.
Yeah. There's never any sort of bad feelings or bad vibes maintained. So I think that way. So I think, I don't think we could do it with everybody.
No.
There are lots of pros. I think, as you said, every now and again, the cons is we know each other almost too well.
I would say one of the cons is we often end up talking about work outside of work.
Yes, that's true.
That one, we are not good at that.
Personal life in work.
Oh, yes. When we get together.
Sometimes that's a bit blurry.
That can blur a little bit. So we work from home 3 days a week and we try to get together twice a week.
Yeah.
And sometimes we kind of spend a fair chunk of the 2 days talking about personal stuff because it's our chance to be together.
Yeah.
But that works quite nicely. I still like the 3-2 kind of balance.
Yes, I think it gives us the opportunity that if we need another day, there is another day.
There's another day, and we just build it in.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the questions we get asked a lot is, how do we work and how does this little business of ours work? So we're a B Corp, we are female-led and owned, and we are committed to flex work and particularly hiring people that are coming back into the workplace after a long period of parental leave. So I think everyone we've ever hired has been someone that's come in from kind of 2 to 5 years plus parental leave, and we spend quite a bit of time giving them the space to reintegrate into the workforce and offering really flexy work. And at times that works beautifully, and at times that can be a little bit hampering.
Yeah.
But yes, I think we've managed it quite well because it's what we need in our lives.
Yes, and it's ever changing. So now my son is 14. I have a lot more flexibility because you're nearly 14. He's at secondary school, so he's much more independent. So that means that I have more flex. But as you say, for those with younger children, where the school day is much more constrictive and you're required in school and, Harvest Festival and concerts and sports day and, all the other things that we all want to be present for. And we
want to do
feel it's important to be present for those things wherever you can be. So as you say, it's what I love about what we do is it's true flexible time. And especially with running the business, I often find operationally, when it's the end of the month, when we've got a lot happening, I will be crazy busy. So actually then in quieter weeks where everything's ticking along, I will be like, well, actually I've got a bit more time now. I could go to the gym, or I could take a slightly longer lunch hour. I could do all of those things. So as you say, I think it's the right flexible model.
Yeah.
The days in the office are very important for us all to be together, to touch base, to have those conversations. And I know certainly for me, I often go, I've got these 3 questions, and I quick fire questions at you, and you're like, yes, no, and this, and I'm like, perfect, I'm done.
That's all I needed.
And it's much quicker to have that conversation face to face
over the email.
And sometimes brainstorm ideas. So I think that the days in the office are very important.
Yeah, I really like the days actually when we start tackling marketing or revenue generation, because it's the creative time.
Yeah.
And obviously we include like the marketing girl, the PR girls, the whole team will be there. So you can get everybody's input without having to do it on a Teams meet or trying to do it on email.
Yeah.
People are much more open to bouncing ideas.
But I think conversation flows more freely. And I think sometimes even with email, I'm always aware that maybe I sound slightly arsey, but actually I'm not being arsey. I'm just writing very quickly.
It's hard to tell. On all emails or messages, you cannot tell the tone of what someone's saying.
So I think, as you say, it's flexible working is very key to what we do. We think it's really important. And I know we've often been talking about this current move back to full office working. And again, I don't know whether I'm mega against it. If we were to say we've got to up the days in the office, I think it's about being flexible. So, you've got to be in the office X number of days, but that doesn't mean that if something's not coming up in home life, or I don't know, your washing machine's broken, you've got to have an engineer come and you've tried to wangle it on the 2 days you're working from home. Is it okay that I work from home on that another day this week? Because that's the only day the washing machine engineer can come. Yeah. Ultimately, we'll say, absolutely, log on. And I think as we, as a nation, a society, move on, I think it's that rather than working from home or working in the office, it's embracing flexible working and having the trust in your staff.
Yeah, it's a lot about trust. I can certainly remember being in the corporate world beforehand and banking in particular. And we kept talking about, when are we going to let people work from home? When are we going to allow more flexi type working? And the message at the time, this is pre-COVID, was very much absolutely not. People can't be trusted to be productive at home. And I can remember thinking about it, thinking, well, if you think that, surely that's like an employee line manager conversation about development and having trust, rather than this sort of overarching edict that everybody must be in the office because nobody can be trusted. I used to grate against it so much back then.
But again, I think maybe we've been lucky, maybe we've hired the right people, but all of our staff will know that we trust them.
Yeah.
And so therefore, what we tend to see is something crazy's happened. We're like, can you do an extra couple of hours, or can you do this extra bit of work? And everyone will always say yes. We never have that. We never feel that people aren't at their desk doing what they want to do. No one's employing a little mouse jiggler, which is the recent thing.
A mouse jiggler.
That's what some people are doing there. It's crazy. But it's about trust. And until you extend and show trust in your employee,
and demonstrate what you want from them.
Yes.
So demonstrate flex work yourself.
Yeah.
Show that, yes, you hit all your deliverables and you do all your work, but you will be in and out a little bit. Like you say, something comes up at school or a child goes sick.
Yeah.
And it works. I mean, it works for both men and women, but I've got to say an awful lot of women do need that flexibility while their children are quite young, because it's often ladies that get called into school or get called in when somebody's not well.
Or whoever the primary caregiver is. I mean, hopefully we will see with shared parental leave now.
It would be nice.
We will see, I mean, I know from my husband's workplace that lots of his male colleagues who were younger were taking shared parental leave.
Yeah.
So their wife was taking, or their partner was taking the first part, they were taking the second part. And I do think it's that difference of then the second parent has taken the time and been the person on call, and it just evens that playing.
And I do think it's changing.
Yeah, it's lovely to see.
Yeah.
So, ultimately it's about flexibility for all, isn't it? And maybe when you had two parents who've taken, shared parental leave, if they're taking it in turn, or they're both, both parents are always having to work right now because of where we are, in the world and economically, take it in turn. Okay, so who's got the important meeting this week? Who's got the important meeting? I've just had a phone call from,
and there isn't a default.
It becomes a who can spare the time today. Yeah. But either way, that employer still needs to be flexible and go, I get it. I'll log on from home. I have got a poorly child, and if a child's properly poorly, 9 times out of 10, they're asleep on the sofa and you can be working around them.
Unless you found Calpol, and then they're fine. They're bouncing off the sofa.
They'll need to get back to school. Anyway. So yeah, as you say, it's hopefully we will see that change. But I like to feel that we're pioneers.
I love that. We're the pioneers of it. What else have we been asked? Let's have a look. Oh, we were asked a few questions about our own experiences as parents.
Yes.
Early parenthood, because obviously most of our audience have got little ones at home, babies at home.
It was quite a long time ago. So.
It was a little while. Yeah, you said 14 years now.
Yes. So yeah, he's 14 in the summer. I can't believe how quickly it's gone.
No, it doesn't seem that long ago. I'm sort of a bit concerned that I'm choosing high schools at the moment.
Yeah, it was. We were very lucky. We fell pregnant really easily, but therefore it was always a bit unexpected, which is a bit silly. And I had a relatively straightforward pregnancy. Didn't really like being pregnant, truth be told.
No, I loved being pregnant.
Oh no, I just found that the whole thing just a bit weird. Like
the ending.
Yes, exactly. When they're kicking inside you, and although it's that double-edged sword of I want them to be kicking, but it feels weird every time they're kicking.
Yeah.
But I had quite a difficult birth. So my son was breech, but we didn't know he was breech. So I ended up having an emergency cesarean when I was about 5 centimeters dilated in it all. But everyone was great, but it wasn't quite what I expected. And I hadn't been sleeping very well because I was so uncomfortable. No, that's because he was breached. And yeah, so I wasn't very well. And then I had quite bad postnatal depression. So, which I've always spoken about very openly because I think it's really important. And so it took me a very long time to sort of recover. And even if I look back now, I would probably say I don't really remember much of his first year, 18 months. And sometimes I've seen videos of me laughing and playing with him, but that's not the pertaining memory I had of it. No, I just remember, oh my God, weaning. And I mean, I found breastfeeding really difficult as well.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes I don't necessarily have a positive outlook.
No, I know it's funny because it's not funny, it's awful, but because you were one of the first of our group, to have a little one, I don't think any of us were helpful. We weren't helpful. We didn't understand. We couldn't understand. And at the time, you were living nearby, so it became even more important for you to find help and tribe where you were. Which, yes, I had a very different experience because I was a few years afterwards. So I mean, several of our friends had little ones. So I was more accustomed to babies and births and all the rest of it. And then my first birth was really easy.
Yeah.
Like Becca was teeny tiny. She was only 5 pounds when she popped out. She was a little bit prem, but she was fine. And that was a nice, easy birth. 4 hours in and out with a nice water bath. Yeah, NHS water bath. It was lovely.
Yes.
And probably I was absolutely fine with Becca. I didn't really have a kind of bad experience or negative view of parenthood. It was lovely. It was everything I'd wanted.
Yeah.
I had this teeny tiny baby that I adored. It was only really when I had Alexander that everything went a bit kind of tits up. And only because Becca was still at home and wasn't very happy that I'd had a new baby.
No, I remember.
Alexander popped out and had extreme, what they call it, colic. But that's just an excuse that they don't understand why he's crying. He cried for 6 months straight and did not sleep. And I was kind of falling apart at the seams at that stage, but still trying to do all the things I'd done with Becca because I felt like I had to.
Yeah.
I had to be this perfect mum, and I had been perfect with Becca. So now I had to do baking cookies and painting this and doing that every single day, despite the fact I got 2 crying kids on my hand.
Yeah.
Absolutely no sleep. So I think that was kind of, for me, that was my first time of going, oh God, actually parenthood is really hard. It's really hard. Yeah. And I think that nearly broke me. But I didn't really find my tribe as such. I roped in my mum.
Yeah. Well, I remember coming around here when Alexander was little, and I think 'cause I'd lived through it, I remember looking at you and going, you need something to eat. Do you want me to make the something to eat, or do you want me to hold the baby? And you just looked at me and you went, hold the baby. And I was like, okay, cool. No worries. You go do.
Yeah.
That's like,
I used let me be normal with 2 hands.
It's fine. Give me the baby. And as you say, it's funny, isn't it? That it is hard, and it's relentless, and you never know whether you're doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing. And I think that's what I found so difficult. There's no manual.
There's no manual, and even if there was one, the baby's not read it.
And I think that it was that constant uncertainty and lack of control that I found really, really difficult. Arguably why we don't have a second. I was like, what is it? I struggled with the first one. I'm not entirely sure I can introduce that other human being into this. Yeah. So we've got a dog instead. Yes, but as you say, it is hard. And I think, but that's why and you're very much the same, I always try and talk about it because I think it's
so really open about parenthood is amazing and it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's joyous. It's also really hard.
Yeah.
And at times it's relentless. At times it's boring. I always said that I walked through kind of my corporate life, and in 12 years of high-powered meetings, Nobody ever made me cry in the laundry room.
No.
Or sneak to the shower and shut the door just so that I could sob.
Yeah.
And yet, these beautiful children of your own making, they make you cry on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, and as you say, I think my only advice for anyone would be ask for help, like seek help. I did get help. I took, when I had postnatal depression, I had a very good health visitor, and actually I was very lucky. My husband was amazing. I was like, I'm fine. And he said to health visitor, no, she's not. She's not fine.
No, she's just
not
pretending.
This is not the person who I know. And again, it was quite a long time ago. I think in hindsight, it would have been good for me to have some talking therapy, but that wasn't as available then. But I did take antidepressants for a period of time, and then weaned myself off a little bit too soon. But yeah, I think, as you say, ask for help.
Ask for help. Look around for help and admit when it's getting hard.
Whether that's medical help, whether that's if you've got an NCT group, if it's, whatever group of people, a group of mums, group of dads, a group of whomever. I lived in an area where I would walk around. We had a little neighbourhood, and I knew, because I was fine in the mornings because I always had a class, but I was used to know in the afternoons. So Sam used to wake up from his nap at 3, and I knew I had like a 4 to 5 hour stretch before my partner got home. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I used to walk around the neighbourhood with a packet of biscuits in the bottom of the buggy, and I used to knock on friends' door, and they often had old children. And so I would hand my baby over, and when their kids came in for school, I would help their children do their maths homework. And it was amazing. They were absolute lifesavers. But yeah, I was asking for help, and they all knew.
And
it would just be
and I think it's hard now because not everybody has that kind of community on their doorstep.
No.
A lot of people live far away from mums, aunties, friends, and are quite reliant these days on kind of social media for their advice and their help. And I think that, if anything, that's probably more dangerous at times now, because the social media presents this beautiful view of parenthood.
Yeah.
And actually it's quite damaging if you're comparing yourself to these beautifully set up shots.
Yeah.
And these lovely videos that people have taken all day to get this 2-second video. You do have to be quite conscious that is not reality. But on the other hand, social media can be a perfect place for finding your tribe.
Yeah.
For actually getting in with a Facebook group. Yeah, so it is a bit sort of 50-50, isn't it? And I do feel for the newer parents today. I think they've got a lot more expectations on their shoulders than even we went through sort of 10, 15 years ago.
Well, my mum has said to me, she's like, even you guys, when you had children, she said, we never had to do...
No.
She said, you do everything. She said, I never did any of that with you. I didn't take you to classes. I didn't do this. She said, I would... bundle you up in the pram, put you outside, and I'd clean the house. And said, I didn't take you to classes, I didn't do this, there were no guidelines of what you should be eating, what I'm trained. And so, as you say, my mum said it to me. She was like, you have way more expectation. There are way more, you're told more what's wrong, what's right.
Yeah. And of course, the advice is often conflicting. Yes. Like, actually, if you read all the manuals out there, you would have no idea what to do, because they range like completely polarized viewpoints.
Yeah.
You do have to I think sometimes my advice to a lot of new parents would be trust your own instincts. Like, actually, yes, you can read all of this stuff, but choose the path that actually works with you, works with your values, your lifestyle. I can remember the big topic when I went through those two was sleep training. Not sleep training, routining, not routining, free sleeping, co-sleeping, I mean, honestly, you could have had every opinion under the sun. You just had to pick the one
that worked for you.
Yeah,
because this is the way that we're very different, because I am very much routine. So we did do, when this is showing my age, we were Gina Ford.
Oh, yes.
So we read Gina Ford, but I was very lucky because I was slightly balmy, but again, my husband's a very moderate, sensible man. And I'd just be like, but we have to be doing this. He's like, Jenny, everything with a pinch of salt. Everything with a pinch of salt. So I think I always had that voice of reason in him, and him go, but we were very lucky. It worked for you. Well, it worked for us, and it worked for our little boy, and we did like but I still did things that she didn't recommend. So Sam would sleep in his buggy because he didn't, but you were hanging about hours, and so he's always slept everywhere. But it helped for me to have that.
You needed a little bit of structure.
So then I've always really been jealous of sort of you and some of the other mums who just go, I'm just breastfeeding my babies, I'm making tea and doing all of this, and I just couldn't have done it.
Yes, but there were days my household was insane because we had no routine and no rules. The kids co-slept, they slept on me, baby wearing. I mean, it worked for me, and I loved it, but there were days when I did get that voice in my ear going, rod for your own back, rod for your own back.
I know, but then other times, I'm doing everything totally the opposite, as I'm saying, routine, and I'd look at you and think, so we should stay much more chilled out than I have. I have just accepted that I'm naturally not a chilled out person, and that's fine. But as you say, it works for different people. You've got to find the one.
And I think that's it, is kind of trust your instincts and work out what works for you.
Yeah.
And in some ways, don't commit to anything too hard.
Oh no.
No, you're the other way, aren't you?
No, I totally agree with you. Well, I think you can have an idea of what you want.
Yeah.
But I remember people, I love it. You still love it when people go, oh no, my baby's never going to do this and never going to do that. And I used to say the same before you have a baby. You're like, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. And then you're in it and you're like, oh, that was stupid. What a stupid assumption to make. Because as you say, and I think it's just, they change so quickly and they're still changing.
Yeah.
Even at nearly 14, he's still changing. Everything moves so quickly. You just have to remain as malleable as possible whilst sort of instilling your own values in them. And I think that's probably the most comprehensive thing. That's whatever routine or whatever you're doing, it will change on a knife edge. And one morning you'll wake up and go, but I don't know why this has all changed because I've done everything exactly the same. And it
doesn't change. They've moved on. Yeah. I think it's a little bit scary now. Our kids are getting so much older and we can see that they're actually on their way into adulthood. Not so much like mine yet. Mine are heading into high school, but we're now in discussions about GCSEs. And
there's talk about changing the voting age to 16 to 17. So that means next time there's a general election, Sam would be voting.
Oh, gosh, that's a big step.
It changes and it changes really quickly. But as you say, you just got to do the best you can.
Do the best you can and try and enjoy it along the way.
Yes, ask for help. Talk to your friends.
Yeah.
Everyone's what I've always learned is someone's always feeling the same way about it that you are.
Yeah.
More or less.
At times you can feel quite isolated and think that you're on your own. But actually when you start to talk to people, you realise that everybody's going through their own kind of parenthood journey, for better or for worse, on a regular daily basis. Like, I almost want to say, there's not even like a whole bad day. Even within one day, there'll be a good bit, a bad bit, another good bit, another bad bit. It's a journey.
Yes. And I do like seeking advice from other mums as well. And it's quite nice sometimes when, as you say, because Sam's a bit older, I can say, oh, when we did this was what we did. So when we were first looking at sort of online gaming, this is what we did. This is how we limited it. This was our experience. That's what we did.
I'm not giving you advice.
There's a piece of information from a real life person.
Yeah.
And this is what
we found. Now it's your choice, but take that as an experience into advice, but I'm not telling you how to know it. I'm just saying this is what we did.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's quite helpful.
Yeah.
And when I especially speak to mums of older children, how did this work? What did you do? And it's just nice to sort of gain that advice and experience and go,
I'll take a nugget from that one and a nugget from that one.
Exactly.
And make up my own rules.
Yep.
Perfect. I think we have whittled on for quite long enough. As you can tell, we're going to go and make ourselves a cup of tea and have another hour or two whittering at one another. But we'll let you all go back to your days. Thank you very much for listening to us.